Hello, it's Charlotte Sister C. Ferrell, host of Powered by Age, Canada's longest-running senior-led podcast that invites you to do what you love.
This podcast is for you if you love writing or telling stories, if you love sharing poetry or doing interviews.
This podcast is for you if you love working on ways to create age-friendly cities.
This podcast is for you if you love learning how to tame technology and get more out of virtual events, if you love finding more ways to share your heritage or traditions.
If you love any of these things, you can go beyond listening and join our weekly podcast group. Simply email pbaafc@gmail.com and put your name in the subject line. Powered by Age is sponsored by the Government of Canada, New Horizons Grant, the 411 Senior Center Society, and G&F Financial Group. Good afternoon. Welcome to Powered by Age, Canada's longest running senior-led podcast. And today I'm Charlotte Ferrell, your host. We're going to be talking about words. What a word to have to discuss. I'm going to, usually the people that are on first, we have them introduce themselves. And maybe you can tell what is your favorite word of the day. And first on was Neall.
Yeah, well, good afternoon. I'm a poet. I write poetry and short stories, and this is my book, From the Other Side. It's available on Amazon and on Kindle, and please help a starving artist and buy my book. And my favorite word, no, not my favorite word, my word for the day is daring. Daring, as in I dare you.
Okay, and we dare you later to read your poem. Okay, Leslie?
Yes, I'm Leslie Hebert. I am a wordsmith. I write poetry, short stories, travel memoirs. And my favorite word today is cataract, which has many meanings, actually. I just had cataract surgery, but it also means like a wonderful waterfall, which is a whole nother image. So, and as you see, my virtual background today is a tropical island somewhere, and I'm sure there is a cataract falling somewhere in the background.
Well, that's a clever use of words, wordsmith. Dr. Ramona.
So I'm Ramona Srinivasen, a retired professor, Bombay University, a writer of academic texts, and a new immigrant to Canada, and moved to Vancouver from Mississauga. And my word for the day is serendipity. That is like accidentally finding something good, like this group, Powered by Age. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sajed.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Syed Behrooz Behnejad. I'm Iranian, a publisher, translator, and civil society activist. I've come to Canada 2 years ago, and I love the beautiful city of Vancouver. And I'm very pleased to meet you fine people today. And I'm looking forward to learn good words from you.
Okay, I put in a good word. Shahed is a member, one of the board members at the 411 Senior Center, and we gratefully acknowledge our sponsors are the 411 Senior Center Society, the Government of Canada, New Horizons Grant Program, and G&F Financial. They make it possible for us to be at now our 82nd, right, historian, Leslie?
Yes, the 82nd podcast.
82nd podcast. And one of the things that we've been telling people, a goal of our podcast is to create the largest reservoirs of stories of older people in Canada. Sometimes when people talk about people, it's just if they made the news or if they were seen on TV. But everyone has at different times talked about someone they knew, somebody that impressed them in their church, their neighborhood, their family. So we're welcoming you who are listening, as well as those that are on live in our magazine style show, to find somebody to interview. We have had different experiences with some of the people within our podcast program or in the volunteer training program with CJSF Radio. Periodically, the show airs in the Speak Up, Listen Up, Act Upon show. So there are a lot of opportunities for people to use their words and to know that they are welcomed. We are about the mission of changing the negative perceptions people had of older people. I attended the Vancouver Podcast Festival on the weekend, and among the people who spoke, they said that podcasting is an independent radio program. It's independent by an individual or sometimes a small group, and that the market for podcasting, where mainstream media, companies, businesses, hospitals want podcast program, has grown from $9 billion, that's with a B, $9 billion to $90 billion. So they were really encouraging people to do what we've been doing here. If you have a story, a joke, a poem that you might share in the podcast, you can also record it with assistance from CJSF, and it'll go onto our website. And who knows, there might be someone who wants to pick up your podcast as well, or ours. Okay, one of the questions that I ask when we mark, there's an old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And there's a logo, for those of you who get our email, of a leopard with a little goat nibbling on its ear. Who knows what picture that represents? What words that statue represents? It's found in Vancouver. There's a peace garden with statues of different things around. So in front of the library that's at Kirk Street, there is this whole garden of statues that represent scriptures. And this one is from the scripture, "And a little child will lead us." And the goat, do you know that scripture, Ramona?
Yeah, it does sound familiar. And the thing is, in your mail, that picture was blank, the square. So I didn't know what it meant. But yes, a little child will lead us, definitely.
And that the fatted goat will lay down with the leopard. And so the sculpture has this little leopard. So whenever you get our email, that picture is there. It's the icon for the Powered by Age show. And it's representation it's an intergenerational cross-species harmony. So I ask you, if you had any things in your possession that represent, where there's a picture that represents a ton of words.
I have a picture that's rather interesting, and this was one of my trips to China, and that's me talking to a panda bear.
Oh, I see. He's just excitedly responding to you.
Oh, there we are. I got it right side up. Yeah, he's talking to me and he says he's got 30 more years to go in his sentence.
That's a great picture.
He looks. That's one of my favorite pictures. That guy. He's ready to have a nap. Anyway, those are my pictures that when I was in Chengdu in Western China. And I have many more, of course, because my translator back then was teasing me about all the pictures I took of the pandas. I was blessed with anyway. there's a bunch of pictures of panda bears. And I feel blessed that I was able to have a chat with a panda bear.
and as the fence, I mean, it looked like you were right there with them. The fence, is missing, so it does show that you too might have a friendly conversation with the panda bear. Ramona, did you bring something?
Yes, I would like to show you a family photograph. And I think it was taken almost 80 years ago. So it's very precious. And let me know if you can see it. I'm going to turn my phone away. How is it now?
Yes, maybe describe it to us, since the people that are listening by podcast wouldn't be able to see it, but tell us what we're seeing.
Okay, so then this photograph is, I'm saying it's taken about 80 years ago, because the baby was 2 years old, and he would have been 82 now. So that central figure there is my grandmother, Azuciana Lobo, a very tall, strong lady, a single mother who brought up her 2 sons, cultivating these beautiful rice fields in my native village in Goa. And then you can see her sons, Sylvester. He grew up to be 6'5" and worked as a chief labor officer at Bombay Port Trust for almost 40 years of his life. He was affectionately called Chief by his colleagues and Lobo Sab by his laborers. And then you can see his brother, Felix, his younger brother, who worked in the hospitality industry in some of the most famous hotels in Bombay, like the Ritz and the Ambassador. And then the 2 ladies, my beautiful mother, Olympia Rosa, and my aunt Inez. So they are the ones who nurtured the Lobo family and made it, a wonderful place to be in. And then the youngest member, my brother Austin, he was my eldest brother. He's seated on my grandma's lap, and he grew up to be a very fine, young, intelligent man, worked as a chartered accountant for most of his life in Bombay, and then moved to Toronto, where he lived for the last 14 years of his life. So that is this very precious family photograph. It's like one of those sepia prints that you had, remember, in the old days when you went to a studio. And I was just wondering what would be their thoughts and where did they go to get it taken? Because we lived in a very small village in Goa. So they may have had to travel to a studio, and I wonder what their thoughts were as they did that. So this photograph definitely says more than 1,000 words to me. Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy I could show it to you.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Ramona. I love those old family photos, and they really are worth 1,000 words, because very often they come with stories attached.
Right.
Well, that photo that you showed presumably would have been a formal studio portrait.
Yes, they look like very artificially,
Yeah.
Like the photographers got them to pose, their hands are like, and I thought it was interesting to see the different clothes that they wore. Like my mother's wearing this Western dress and huge shoes, and my aunt and my grandmother are wearing the sari. So it's like, I don't know how come it was like that. So very interesting things come up when you look at it. Yeah.
Thank you, Leslie. A lot of photos from my husband's family, and they actually spent a lot of time moving around, homesteading throughout the northern United States and Canada. What amazed me is they were very poor, but they had a camera. You know, you said you were amazed where the pictures came from, but they actually had a camera, which, you know, my family in that same epoch would never have had a camera. They would never have afforded it. So it's really interesting because some of the pictures are very informal and they really show a lot about their lives. And yes, some of them come with stories attached, which are kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are a few people within our group that are writing memoirs. Leslie's writing a travel memoir. And just from all of the things that you mentioned from that picture, I'd say you've got to start on your memoir. Because it's...
in fact, that's going to be my memoir. I've kind of got a rough idea of it. So those are the 6 people. Yeah, 6 people in it.
Okay. Sayed, did you bring anything? Did you have something that was an example of a picture that tells maybe not 1,000, but a ton of words? What I have, can you see that? This is on a box of something I bought. What do you think that is?
Is it a phone in the holder? And that's a little baby's picture in it. Like, it looks to me like that's a kind of a way to hold the phone upright.
Yeah. What do you think, Ryan? Mr. Ryan, Neall? He's got two first names.
I think that's a dashboard holder for your mobile phone. Yeah.
Okay. What this is, it's a robot camera, and the words for it had a lot of words. It had a diagram, but when you take it out, the little girl really did, help you see what it is, because when I just look at this, it looks like the shape of the Liberty Bell. Yeah. That's like the icon of a bell. But this fits over a tripod, and then your camera does fit in here vertically, I guess horizontally too. And it's supposed to follow your eyes. So from this little picture that they used in the ad of it, it did help me feel like, okay, I can put my camera there. But I haven't actually done it. I have not felt motivated to put this on the camera, because unlike the picture down here, this looks very solid, but this up here looks like it's wiggly. And so the picture has not made me want to put my camera on a tripod and have it follow my eyes while I'm moving about. But it's kind of the tools. This is one of the things that we have coming up, where we're going to do some Technology Tuesdays. We had some Technology Tuesdays where different people worked with either Jesse or I on adjusting the sound, adjusting background, adjusting other things, and then recording something so it had a clearer sound for putting onto the website or however people might want to use it. And last night, it was the annual general meeting, Thursday night, for people who are listening on the radio today. And now CJSF has a space at the bottom of the student center, new student center out at the campus. But downtown at 312 Main Street, we also have a location where sometimes some of you have said, well, it would be great if you could meet the person that you want to interview at another place instead of both of you having to use Zoom. So that's something that is in the works. And then other tools where sometimes we will have the capacity for you as a podcaster or an interviewer to interview a person right there across the table from them. So those are things to look forward to. And it is just an extension of how the reality that these senior-led podcasts, where different people, there are more than 44 people that have been involved, and different times 3 people have presented on a topic. Leslie and Neall did a different type of story, an integration of a poem with a story. And we have Dr. Ramona, who used a dish towel for hair and showed us how influencers work. So more of that is to come as we go into December. We'll be unveiling other opportunities for you. of the things that we wanted to share, why don't we do your poem? And I have some words. We're going to look at words. Many times people say they've run out of words or they don't just, there's a word at the tip of their tongue. So I have found, Kindle is a system where a lot of people read their books. Kindle is welcoming books written by authors. You used to have to go through quite a system to buy and pay for someone to record you and learn how to set it up. Well, so many independent people are writing books. They have their own tutorials on how to do an audiobook. They have their own tutorials. So all you have to do is come up with the words. So Neall, let's hear some of your words, and then we're going to look at a little tool that I got from someone called a Kindlepreneur. There are entrepreneurs. This person is a Kindlepreneur and has pages of words that fit particular things, genres like mysteries and romance. So we're going to play with some of those words in a little while after we hear Neall's selection for today.
Well, my word of the day was daring. The name of this poem is How Dare You Write Poetry? How dare you write poetry? Can you hear him? I can. He's the voice in my head that said, how dare you write poetry? It was clear and distinct. How dare you write poetry? The voice continued, stop, stop, stop. This is not good for you. Interesting, I thought, as I sat down to write this poem. Whose voice is that? It sounds stern like a man's voice, but whether it's father's voice or mother's voice, it simply doesn't matter. They both reside inside my head, wanting to tell me where the unsafe boundaries begin, boundaries that pretend, if followed, will keep me safe. How effective are those boundary voices then? That is a fallacy because it's not true. No matter how safe we play it, in the end, we all succumb. Maybe the purpose of the voices, as primitive as they are, is to keep the monkey alive long enough so it can procreate. The goddess of procreation is the owner of the voice heard inside my inner sanctum of my mind. For a million years, that voice has urged us to survive. Follow the rules and live. Here, God said as she splattered sticky, gooey protoplasm across the cooling earth. Go forth and multiply and see what you make of that. That edict has been driving every species to procreate ever since. This is the paramount edict of existence that drives all species. Keep surviving and evolving through reproduction. Parents become parents who become parents. Changing microbially in accordance with conditions until perhaps one day we can say to God, Mother, this is what we've made of it. Every species exists because of the voices from the primitive mind. Instructions to survive to ensure continuation of the seed. Variations of these rules have been passed down century after century, but boundaries deter our need to grow. So why is it not safe to write poetry? Because it is not safe to stand out among the crowd. They might see my imperfections. My hyper-narcissistic introvert like me, standing naked and unashamed before the world, is the most life-threatening thing there is to do. But there is another voice, a more urgent voice, a louder voice that says, expand, grow, defy the rules, defy the boundaries, and express the voice. Express the voice from the other side that demands to speak its truth. Share the knowledge that it is time to move from animal-based rules of greed and lust and desire for more. Time to move to a life of awareness. Awareness that comes from the heart, supported by our emotions. Awareness that allows us to see just how difficult it is to exist as a spiritual being living in an animal body, with that voice that tells me the rules to be safe. How dare I write poetry? I do because I must, and that voice is mine. End of poem.
You're clapping. One of the things that we do is called riff, not like rip, but riff. Respectful, interesting, informative, friendly feedback. So does anyone have any feedback that you'd like to share with Neall about that poem?
It's the whole idea of boundaries, right? That are meant to protect us. And yet, if we all stayed within the boundaries, nothing would change. We'd be static, right? So any creative person pushes at those boundaries. They don't necessarily go over them, but they push at the edge just to see how far they can push them and how much more is possible. I think a lot of creativity it's within boundaries, but it's exploring the limits of boundaries in a way.
It's scary. I think that's what I'm trying to say here, is that there's a voice inside that says, don't do this. It's scary.
Yeah, and 99% of people don't. They don't want change. They're scared of change, right? And they're also scared of the people that push for change, because those people somehow threaten existing order.
I've lived all of my life pushing the edge, trying to be in the adventure of living, because it's a wonderful life, but it can be scary.
I thought it was interesting, the three voices, because one was like you were standing outside of yourself asking this question, and then the two voices making their case for why not? Why not speak up? Why not challenge? Why not change? And then there's the other one saying, but, we should be quiet. But it was really interesting how this crowd worked together in that poem to raise questions of how dare you? Because people do say that, you can't make any money with that. Why aren't you doing your nutritional stuff, Sister C? How dare you? Why? And you've given an eloquent answer of why, that being true, there's a thing that says, to thine own self be true. And that is a wonderful way that poem communicates that.
It's also about margins, right? So the boundaries are the margins of something else. So very often where two cultures meet, you have a margin, and that's where the interaction takes place. We talk about marginalized people. Those are people that are living at the edge of society, but very often those people may be artists, creators as well, because they don't listen to the same drum as everybody else.
As you're speaking of listening, one of the things that we were different hosts within the radio shows were encouraged to listen to each other's music. And so I went to a listening party that had electronic music, and I was expecting that it was going to drive me crazy. But as Jesse is going to play one of the electronic pieces, it really sent me thinking about that person as a creative person, that it's good to respect and to explore what the painter does, what somebody does with a horn, what somebody does with drums. So we're going to be hearing a piece of electronic music as CJSF functions to give voice to those people that are not always the top 40, the people who are brave enough to independently produce their work and give a platform for them to share it where they don't have to have a $5,000 budget. They just have to be, as Neall had mentioned, bold enough to write what they want to say, to put it into a digital format, send it in so that people can hear it as they do on our podcast or as they do on the radio station. Ramona, you had a comment?
No, I just want to say that Neall, I'm always overwhelmed by his poetry. It really touches my heart, and I thank him for and admire him a lot for being able to come up with these wonderful, wonderful poems. Every time that we've been here, he's either read a story or a poem, and his enthusiasm is so inspiring. Thank you, Neall.
Thank you.
Does everybody have a piece of paper? Usually people bring a piece of paper or a something, paper, pen, marker. We're going to think about, first I want you to just think about 3 words you would use if you were writing about something, selling. And I'll count to just 5, where each of you write 3 words that you would use if you were talking about selling, if selling somehow entered your story, your argument, your poem.
I have nothing to write with. I have to go get something.
Okay. I'll go back to this. And I'm going to email so that you will have this resource. It's one of the free resources that the person that is doing Kindlepreneur, he said that when he was beginning to try and do his self-publishing, there weren't many resources, or he read that there was an opportunity, but nobody was sharing. And so he's not selling this particular resource on trigger words. It's among the things that he shared as a Kindlepreneur that I found was very helpful, because there are at least 8 people within our group that are doing self-publishing. Some people have paid a lot of money for companies that say that they're self-publishing, but they're not actually helping you to self-publish. They sell you a package where they print on demand. But this particular person in the Kindlepreneur series has got tips on how do you get your copyright, how do you get a number of things that people sometimes charge a lot of a big fee to you to have them do it for you, when it is possible to do it yourself. But I think the words are great, because everybody at some point says, I'm using the same 10 words. It's also one of the things that the algorithms, like Amazon isn't the only source that is buying people's self-published books or buying people's audiobooks, but there are algorithms that look at the frequency at which you use certain words. And then there are some words that are triggers that make the things, that will make, when you buy something, you buy one book, and then it says, people who've read that have also read this by John Doe. It's because of the way that the algorithm picks up the variety of words you use. Okay, so...
Hey, I'm not sure I understand the exercise, Charlotte. So are these words to do actually with publishing, or are we looking for a book title? I'm not sure.
No, these are looking for words that you use in your story. So even if within your memoir, you have a section where you're talking about people within the bar. But if you were writing about it and you were looking for other words, these are trigger words emotional trigger words that you could include in things that you're writing.
Oh, I'm not sure I understand what a trigger word is then. I don't.
It's a word that evokes a particular emotion.
Okay.
And so interestingly, he has these words that deal with selling. You see now on the screen, selling. I'm looking at my screen, so I can't see what you see. You also, part of what the author does is write offers to people. So these are words that might be within the content of a story, but these are words that might also be used when you are writing an offer or a description. So,
Okay, so these are like keywords for internet searches and things, are they?
no, not so much. It's for content, the content of what you write, or it can be the content of literally. Let's say in your story that you read from the travel memoir, the person they might be backed into the corner. They might. I'm trying to see, are there any words in here that you would see that would fit into either of the stories that you read? The one about the bath. I'm thinking there were no questions asked. When the person said, let's go upstairs, I'm going to show you where to put your bags. There were no questions asked among the travelers.
So I'm not sure. I have a hard time thinking like this. Maybe when I was thinking of keywords, maybe there were words that would get me interested if I was reading a book. Is that a same thing, or is that a different way to approach it?
Well, keywords, there's a thing of hashtag keywords that give you an indication of what things other people that are searching for are interested in these words. But the idea of these words that are in the different categories are when you're stuck for a word, when you're describing a situation, there might be a character, a scene, or something where there's dialogue between people. What are some of the words that that you might use in that discussion?
I'm sorry, I'm chuckling here. Is that I'm never at a loss for words.
I will say yes, that is true. Okay, let's go to another set of words here. At first, I'm going to ask you, this is in the category energy. If you write down on your paper 3 words that you might use if you were writing about or even describing, like Ramona is talking about, we're going to be doing a podcast on brain health, and we've had many people talk about energy. So if you were planning the words or planning what you were going to say about energy, write down 3 words that you would use, and then let's look and see where those words fit with the some of the trigger words this person has identified in the category of energy.
So we to choose 3 words from the screen, or
no, 3 words before looking at what's going to come up at the screen.
Oh yeah, okay, that's good, because I'm having a hard time reading the screen right now. Yeah, okay. Energy, okay.
Ramona, do you have 3 words?
I think I do. Strength, toughness, stamina,
okay.
Spirit. I'm adding one more, vitality. Oh.
Okay, my 3 were vibrant, vitality, perky. All right, let's see what's in the his list of words. Amazing, audacity, backbone, relentless, sensational, spine.
Sensational, or inspiring.
Eye-opening.
Yes.
Because
mind-blowing, mind-boggling. That's also nice.
Neall, did you have 3 that came to mind for you, or any of your 3 among this list of words?
I have 3 words, and none of them are in the list. I actually have 3 words. Spirit is one of the words that I had. Spirit, it's towards the bottom 3.
Yes.
Connection, no, and healing I have, but it's a heart. You just moved it out of my screen.
Oh, I made it a little smaller.
Heart, Healing, yes, okay. No, but I have spirit and I have heart.
What about you, Nancy?
Nancy? You mean Leslie?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I was just doing a word association thing. I didn't really know what to do. So energy, I would come up with fantastic, high octane fire and heat. And I was going kind of in that way. I don't know.
Okay. So often, there's some words you see that are overworked. A lot of people say awe-inspiring, eye-opening, mind-boggling. But the idea of these is just giving you, if you're writing, especially since a lot of people are writing memoirs or travel stories, or even in a competition for Neall quite often enters these 24-hour competitions. It's good to have a bucket of other words to choose from so that people don't feel like they're reading the same old thing. So that's the point of these trigger words, that these are other things that around that particular field called energy. These are some other words that you might use in the story or in the promotional material that you write about your story. Since, again, podcasting is independent broadcasters, independent, non-licensed frequencies, self-published authors, poets, musicians. Everybody has to write a pitch. One of the things you have to do for a film is you have to write a pitch. Nobody will read some of the things you have unless you have a pitch, or they ask for a 300-character summary. I entered something in a film festival at the beginning of the month, and they wanted one thing that was 300 characters, which was different from 300 words. So this is just a nice little collection of words that to help us all with that process. Okay, let's look at another category, which is fear. Does anyone see any words in here that you might have used or would see yourself using in talking about fear? Having a character that deals with fear, or a poem that deals with fear?
Panic.
Well, I noticed toxic. I'm having a hard time reading this. I'm sorry, Charlotte, but yeah. So toxic relationships are always very frightening things.
Yes. Cataclysmic. You don't see so much. We hear about catastrophe a lot, but cataclysmic.
Right.
Two words that I've heard so much I don't want to ever hear again, but it sounds like it's happening on my house. Atmospheric river.
Oh, yes.
Right. Do these people not have more words to use? Because, is this a new phenomenon? Have there been atmospheric rivers before? Is it a new word they learn? But shellacking.
Yeah.
In talking about fear, I wouldn't have thought of using, shellacking or.
I have no idea what that's got to do with fear.
Well, when one thing, shellacking is a lot of paint hits you at the same time, or that it's going to, I guess you have to know something about painting or dealing with paint that might have an association for someone.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it has another meaning. You hear about moonlighting all the time, right? And that basically means making somebody think they're crazy because what they think is true isn't true, or you just tell them that. So maybe shellacking is another kind of ploy to manipulate people. I have no idea.
But in the A's, we hear about agony a lot, but Armageddon, we hear about apocalypse and Armageddon, I think, have been used a lot, but not so much annihilate. What do you think about these words, Ramona?
I think there's a wide variety. And yes, if we're writing, we could use a lot of them. Now, your screen, whatever you're sharing, the words are very tiny for me to read, and we can't expand them. Earlier, you had how did you do that? The font looked bigger, and we could see. You are slowly increasing it.
There's a little thing up at the top that has a percentage, so I'm clicking it, and it increased it to 110.
Now it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that you're using something there. But now, Charlotte, we can see 1, 2, 3, the 3 columns properly, and the 4th column is kind of half.
Yes. Well, this is called fun with learning these digital things.
It's wonderful. You're doing this, Charlotte. It's really amazing. I am really happy to see the way you are so adept at it already.
Well,
So now, yes.
Okay,
Now
there is a little thing down along the bottom. This is for those of you who are at home and maybe at some point doing a screen share or just a presentation. We're learning that all kinds of classes. We last week we talked about the Star Institute at the university that extended service to the 411 Center and helping them to contact 519 people about what they thought about the way that the upload of vaccination information had to be put into a QR code, and it was using tools and techniques that a lot of people don't have. Now there's increasingly workshops. There was something on accommodations, and it was presented for seniors to give their feelings, but they hadn't had the experience with using PowerPoints or presentations or chat. So that's why within our podcast, we're going to be increasingly giving people an opportunity to present, just so you get used to both looking at the format, but also learning the tools that these little buttons and arrows and things that are within, that's how you move stuff over. So that's what I'm doing now. It's just at the bottom of the slide on the words, there's an arrow where if I enlarge it, then I can move it to the right or the left. And you can see on the left side, there's blinded, and over into the W's, you can see there's vulnerable and wrecking havoc.
Yeah, I must say when I write, I make great use of an online thesaurus. So if I find I'm repeating a word, I'll just go to the thesaurus and see what else I can find that has the same meaning or similar, right?
Yeah, and that's what most of us were, taught. We use the thesaurus. The different thing with these, when they talk about emotional trigger words and the hashtag, there's even with the word algorithm, they use algorithm so much you think you know what it is, but that might not be exactly what it is. But there's a system of math that looks at the frequency at which a number of things are doing, and that words that stimulate people to take an action, like buying something, hating something, whatnot. And it's generated this list of trigger words. So aside from the thesaurus, it's just another resource that a person can look at to see, okay, in my story, if we know that these are trigger words that have been identified as evoking a particular emotion, then we could look at, how it might work into what we're doing. Okay, and then finally, there are words with trust. There are words related to anger. There are words related to romance. So I'm not going to go through all of them today, but it's just sharing that resource with you all as writers, and then with people who listen, who are working on stories. The thing that so many people have told me about sharing, or who's stuck with writing something, they said, I run out of words. I don't have enough words. I'm afraid of the words, or I've forgotten the words. So this emotional trigger words is something that you can find under Kindlepreneur, KINDLEPRENEUR.com. Many people, now for some people, Kindle is obsolete. For a lot of other people, that was the first way that they started to get digital books. So this Kindlepreneur.com is it's a free space. All of the resources so far I found that this person have are free, and that's where you could locate this worksheet on emotional trigger words, this presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. And thank you for taking part of your day to come and share today. We are working ahead. Dr. Ramona, do you want to give just three things about the one that we're working on, an upcoming one on the brain? how to talk about the brain and not have it in all of the ways that people make older people think about it. Do you have headaches? Are you losing your memory? We're going to be doing brain in a positive way. So share some ideas on what people will get when we get to that one.
Yes. So I'd just like to have some fun with activating our brain through some riddles, and maybe a word game. I would depend heavily on Charlotte for screen sharing. And then part of our brain health depends on communication. And so we would have a very small example with some partner questions, which we would share with each other in breakout rooms. A little bit of meditation, if time permits, some movement, and then a discussion on a few topics that impact our brain health, like setting goals and gratitude. And at the end, we would discuss the partner questions once again to check our memory about what each other said, in the breakout room. So that's what we have to look forward to. It's going to be like a real packed hour. So I hope all of you will attend and get some of your friends and family to join us too, because I promise you won't be bored.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll be getting our words together for telling people when and where that is going to be. It's one of the things coming up in December, because this is the last Thursday in November. Can you imagine? We've come to the end of yet another month. So I will look forward to hearing from you all by email. People who are listening, you can go on to the poweredbyage.com website, and there in the contact, you can contact me so that I can include you in an invitation. And if you have a friend or a relative that you think would enjoy this format, feel free to send me an email at pbaafc@gmail.com. Powered by Age, Age-Friendly City. And thank you. I will see you again next Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Namaste. Namaskar. Shukriya.
Namaskar. Neil. Happy to see you. And hopefully, Japanese is one of the words you can say thank you in. So, arigato gozaimasu.
Domo arigato gozaimasu. I saw that.
Great.